breaking news, this just in. Dad and the other workman, Johan, they've finished seeding. Today. After a nightmare run that had seeding take far longer than we were all hoping for, it's finally done. And you know what that means? It's time to put ours in. So Dad's brought the truck home. Johan's kindly brought the ute over with some pre-mixed chemical for our oats. We're gonna unload this and then, well, we're gonna have to unhook the tractor from the plough and then...
That'll be tomorrow's job.
Tomorrow's job, yeah, probably.
We're gonna go and get it.
Benny. And there they go, back off to Badgie to get Dad's ute. Back to that never-ending question that we've been going on about for the past 5 videos. Are we ready for seeding yet? All right, let's get over the checklist. We've ploughed the fields, we've got the combine ready. The last thing we really need to do is test the depth on this. The prototype liquid cast is pretty much ready to go. And, well, obviously this was pretty much ready to go. We just need to hook the tractor on. The tractor's on the plough at the moment. The paddocks are ploughed. We still need to spray some. So that leaves the question, where is the seed? Well, Uncle Ken's home. The truck that you see behind me, for those who are new around here and have joined us in the past couple of months or so, you may have never seen this truck before. What exactly is this truck? Ladies and gentlemen, meet Uncle Ken. No, this truck is not actually my uncle. It was named in honour of my late grandfather's older brother. When they came across from South Australia and settled down in Canna in 1946, I think, 1947, you had Uncle Ken, you had Pop, you had Uncle Jeff, and a couple of other siblings that we don't need to mention for this discussion. Uncle Ken helped Pop clear what became the home block of Nelly Creek. And they did this all through shearing money. They had their Caterpillar tractors and Uncle Ken had his truck. Uncle Ken was more of a truckie than a farmer. And so when they farmed Aranuka, which was next door to Mugga Wugga, eventually Uncle Ken got tired of that and decided that he wanted to go trucking instead. So he sold that farm and he took his truck and his family down to Margaret River. And he started the transport business. And that transport business started in the late 70s and it went right through up to the mid 1990s. Now, Uncle Ken had 5 trucks, and in typical Ken fashion, they had to be Kenworth. This is the sole surviving truck from that transport company, to my knowledge. Now, this truck started out as Uncle Ken's number 1. You can see it printed very faintly on the side here. This was from the original trucking days. However, while this truck, at first glance, it may look like a Kenworth K100C, from my understanding, based on the research that I've delved into this truck over a couple of years ago. This truck is not that original Kenworth from 1979. Let me explain. Uncle Ken had 5 trucks, all of which were Kenworth K100s. This one, of course, would have started out life as a K100C. It wasn't a flatbed. It originally was a prime mover. Prime mover in trucking speak is basically, instead of a flatbed rigid frame here, you'd have a turntable hitch, and this back axle would be closer to the fuel tank. This truck was number 1, and I do believe it was the first of the fleet that Uncle Ken owned. We don't know what the original cab of this looks like. From my understanding, there was some kind of accident that happened in the early 80s where the original cab of this truck got written off. The only thing that could be recovered was the chassis, the engine, the fuel tank, and the back axles. Based off my understanding, I'm yet to read Uncle Ken's book to find out the full context, after which I may do a proper full documentary on his transport business and the Uncle Ken truck. Uncle Ken number 1 was painted in the black and orange and yellow transport stripes which you had here. The other livery these trucks wore was a white, blue and gold colour scheme, which had lining all up along the cab here. I don't know how much transport stuff this truck would have done in its time. All I know is that it did a lot, and by the time the mid-1990s came around, Uncle Ken was starting to get on a bit, and he was restricted from actually driving his trucks to simply managing the business in its yard, and he was a forklift driver. Story short, there was an accident that crippled him that he couldn't exactly drive trucks anymore, so he was forced to sell the transport business. Unfortunately, that meant that he had to sell all of his trucks. Now, the story behind number 1, which became Uncle Ken, well, numbers 2 through 5 all got sold with the transport business, but number 1 was the last one left. So around 1995, 1996, we're not exactly sure when this happened. Dad will correct me, of course. Uncle Ken rang Pop up, and at the time, Pop was looking for a bigger truck to take over from the Mitsubishis that we had at the time, because they were starting to get a bit low on engine horsepower, and while they were good for general transport duties, we needed something that could haul grain and also a seed and super bin. So Uncle Ken sold number 1 to Pop. In his honour, Pop called this truck Uncle Ken. Of course, to get Uncle Ken ready for use on Nelly Creek, we had to do some modifications. At the time, we were just using the porter bin, which is hidden over there somewhere hanging off the barrels. That was the bin that originally went on the Mitsubishi truck. Now, we didn't have any money in the mix for like a dog box trailer or something that could hook up to a turntable hitch. So Dad and Pop, after they bought it off Uncle Ken, took it over to Dongra and turned it from a prime mover into a rigid frame with a 84-foot flatbed on the back. And this would have happened around 1996, 1997. By 1999, which is when this reference photo that I pulled out of the sea container archives was taken, this truck and this bin were already united by 1999. So this is a fairly old setup nowadays. There's that screenshot from the archives of the Uncle Ken truck filling up the Chamberlain air cart and the ball galt 36-foot bar behind the 8760 tractor. That story does not end there, because Uncle Ken's primary purpose was to be the main truck of the farm. It could haul bales, it could haul seed and fertiliser, as you see on this bin right now, and it also had the porter box, which you would have seen in the past, and the Uncle Allen trailer, which was a blue trailer named after Uncle Allen, that we bought at a clearing sale, I'm not sure exactly when, well before my time. But this whole setup with the porter bin hauling grain, it was an orange grain box on this flatbed, plus the Uncle Allen trailer, which currently isn't here at the moment, that could haul around a grand total of, drumroll please, 24 tonnes. Not a lot, but hey, it was big for its time. Of course, the cab would let you believe that this had a Cummins 290 in it. That's what we're assuming was originally under the hood of this truck. However, this truck went through at least 3 prime mover motors under it. Currently, underneath this, I do believe it's got a Cat motor or a Perkins. That'll correct me on that once again. Either way, this truck was showing signs of its age, and the engine was nearly kaput in around 2016 when it rolled some coal coming down the S-bend, and we decided, right, well, are we going to keep the truck, or are we going to retire it and get something else? We couldn't get another truck in the budget, so Dad decided, right, take the old engine block out, put a new engine block in, and the motor that we put in 2016-2017 is the motor that is currently under the truck today. Nowadays, however, because trucks have gotten much bigger and can haul a lot more grain, Uncle Ken, unfortunately, its road train days are behind it. By the end of the Nelly Creek series, we had Jimbo come with his truck to haul the grain from the field bins to CBH for us, when otherwise we would have used Uncle Ken. The reason why we couldn't use Uncle Ken is because Uncle Ken was too small. It couldn't haul enough grain, and Dad needed to be on the header. He couldn't drive the truck at the same time. How the roll dynamic used to work was, after Pop bought the truck off Uncle Ken the man, Uncle Ken the truck would be used to haul grain at harvest time, and Pop would be driving the truck while Dad was driving the header. That's how it worked. After Pop died, well, the only person who could drive the truck was Dad. And he couldn't be on the header, then on the chase bin, then on the truck hauling grain at the same time single-handedly. It was practically impossible. So after we decided we'll just get a contractor to come and cart grain for us at harvest time, Uncle Ken's primary purpose is what it is today, a seed and super bin truck. Now, fast forward to the Rainfall days. We did briefly haul some stuff from Nelly Creek to Rainfall with the flatbed on the back of this. I do believe there's a couple of photos. We hauled the sprayer behind this, as well as a couple of other things that we unloaded as well, like the wreck that's the Chamberlain and a couple of other things. After that, what happened? Well, we didn't grow a crop, as you'd know. We tried to grow a crop in 2023. Of course, we'd have the seed and super bin on the back of this, but of course that crop failed, so we didn't cut any hay that year and didn't bring the header down, so there wasn't really need for the grain bin on the back of this. If the Uncle Ken wasn't useful here, we didn't want it sitting outside, so where would it be useful? Over at Dad's work in Badgingarra. 2023, 2024 and 2025 seeding seasons, the Uncle Ken was not here, it was in Badgingarra. And because we didn't grow any crop at all in 2024, there was no need to have the truck here. So, the reason why the Uncle Ken has only just rocked back up on the farm now is because it was over at Dad's work being stored undercover in the dome. So what are we going to use the Uncle Ken for? Well, seed and super bin truck. That's the primary purpose. What we're going to be using for this, we've got oat seed and we're just going to use it to load the 753. Finally, if all goes well, we'll bring the header down, we'll have the header harvest some seed for next year, and then we'll use the porter bin on the back of this, and we'll use it as a grain truck again to finally fill the silos and give the silos some use. To be clear, this truck is not a Kenworth, it is the Uncle Ken, and the reason why I call it that is because there's very little of the original K100C left. The original motor is gone. The cab is not the original. The frame had to be lengthened. So literally the only thing left of the original truck has got to be the muffler, the front part of the chassis, these drums, the fuel tank, maybe a couple of hydraulic hoses, and that's pretty much it, and that exhaust pipe. The rest of this is pretty much a classic example of bush mechanics at its finest. So if, say for example, someone were to make the Uncle Ken for Farming Simulator 25, sure, it says Kenworth on the side, but that's because this cab is off a Kenworth K100. Could we get this onto consoles if instead of Kenworth on the side, we just said Uncle Ken? I reckon so, because this truck, while on the outside it looks like a heavily modified Kenworth K100, this truck is its own completely separate thing. History lesson out of the way. Right, now, the final revised cropping program for this year. What is it going to be? Well, as you know, we've ploughed that paddock, we've ploughed that paddock, and we're going to be spraying some chemical out, pre-merge out, on top to kill off the weeds and stuff to put oats in the ground. We're going to do this paddock to oats, and then out the west end, we are not going to put Clark Road in. We're actually going to put northwest / black shit bore / whatever you want to call that, 40 hectares. And if there's enough seed left over of that oats, the plan is spray pre-merge, plant these paddocks over the weekend, and then spray that top corner until we run out in northwest paddock. Put that corner into oats without ploughing it, and then the rest, well, we got some barley seed. The plan is we'll put the rest of the arable side of northwest paddock into barley, and the plan will be, okay, we know it's right at the end of the season. We're not expecting any grand totals of 5-ton barley crops or anything like that. Realistically, we're looking at an average of 1 tonne per hectare for the barley. That's okay. We're not planning to sell any to CVH or anything like that this year. We just need some to harvest with the header, to put in the silo for next year, to bulk up for seed. Because if we're thinking about this realistically, what does an arable farm need to succeed? First of all, you need a truck with the seed and super bin. We got that. You need some kind of seeder to put seed and fertiliser, be it granular or liquid, in the ground. We've got that. We've got a tractor, we've got a sprayer. The last thing you really need for an arable crop to succeed is seed. And we've got the seed now. So, to cut costs, whatever we have that we put in the ground this year that we can harvest at the end of the year, provided that it rains, provided that the crop grows, and that nothing else happens, provided we get no more curveballs, we should be able to harvest something at the end of this year. We may not come away with a profit. We'll probably just be scratching by. But if we can bulk up for seed, that's one less cost for next year. So, after all of that, how many hectares are we putting in? 20 hectares of oats and potentially 30 hectares of barley. We don't know. We'll see how much is left in the truck. We might be caught short, we might not. We're not sure. Either way, it's seeding time. This is the moment that we've all been building up to for the first part of the year. The next really built up part will be the harvest, but that first things first, let's get the crop in the ground. It's time. Good afternoon. You join us on the Saturday. It's the next day from the previous clips, and I've got some corrections to make. First of all, we got seed and super in the bin, not oat seed and barley seed. We still need to go back and collect the barley seed at the time of recording this. More to the point, because the combine cannot run solid fertiliser. We haven't got the drop pin for the cogs to run solid fertiliser. We are going to top dress some solid fertiliser out onto the paddocks before putting the oat seed down. We'll also be putting pre-emerge down. So if the fertiliser's got a bunch of clumps in it and we can't put it through the combine, how are we going to put it out? Well, to top dress fertiliser, we need the spreader. We went and pulled this tyre off the spreader this morning. We took it into town and we got the tyre place to go fix it. We got it all sorted now. So now it's a case of pumping the tyres up, lubing it all up. Dad's already gone along with the grease gun to lube it all up and making sure that this is ready to go. We got it turned around and we're filling up now. And now it's a matter of turning the auto steer on and seeing if I can save the settings for the combine. If we got this set right, then we should be able to save the settings for the combine, and that spreader behind us should be spreading around 18 meters wide. Right, so after trying to muck around with the GPS myself, I couldn't get it sorted, so I got Dad to sort it out for me. We're going into the hospital paddock. We've got some fertiliser in the spreader and hopefully this will work.
Good.
Recording the boundary. Okay. Oh, bloody hell.
It'll be like that spraying. I'm going to go even faster. And seeding, we go a bit slower. So I said it made a hell of a rough job.
Yeah. Kind of makes me wish we had a small Kelly chain or something like that.
Yeah,
That would leave a smooth finish. Right, so after a lap, we worked out. Okay, so the plough may have killed some of the weeds, but it left the paddock bloody rough. It's so rough that Johnny isn't big enough for me to ride with Dad driving with the dog in tow. So yeah, I think Dad may kick us, that being me and Bindi Sue, out of the tractor, and we're gonna need to try and find a solution to smooth this paddock out. We have got that roller that's been sitting out in Boggy Ute paddock for a couple of years, pretty much as long as we've owned this farm. We may bring that over and see if we could try and smooth out the paddock a bit. Hopefully this is a safe enough distance away from the spreader. There it goes. Still rough as guts in that tractor. Don't get me wrong, I love that 7810 to bits, but I do miss the comfort and the space that the four-wheel drives had. But anyway, yeah, let's go see what kind of job the spreader's done. You can see they've got a couple of pebbles, bits of white, bits of red. That's from the fertiliser that we top dressed out. The next step after this is to come along with the sprayer. We are not going to be looking forward to that because, well, even though the sprayer is quite big, we also need to push that tractor to a fast speed, meaning that, well, it was rough as guts enough as he is with the spreader. With the sprayer, it's not going to be much better. Perhaps it's a wise idea that, yeah, because we've already ploughed these two paddocks. We're not going to plough the rest of the paddocks that we're putting in this year, purely because, one, there may not be enough moisture, and two, the plough is rough as guts. We don't necessarily want the paddock to be rough, because it's going to be rough as guts for the spreader, for the sprayer, and, well, the combine may smooth it out with the press wheels at the back, but still that may be rough as well. In the ideal circumstances, this is what Dad said to me when we went into town this morning. He said the ideal circumstances were to have two tractors of a similar size to the Johnny. You have the Johnny and a 200 horsepower tractor, be that a New Holland, a Case, a Deutz, a Class, whatever we decide to pick up. Have two tractors going. One would be on the sprayer, the other would be on the spreader or the combine or what have you, and we get this job done quicker. But, well, circumstances currently, it's too expensive for us to currently get another tractor, because front wheel assist tractors like the 7810 over there, they are actually more expensive than the older four-wheel drives. So a tractor like Big Blue, we sold Big Blue for around 88,000. That was including GST. A tractor like the 7810 is actually worth well over 100,000, and that's saying something, because that Johnny in 2027 will be 30 years old. And if you look at statistics found on, say, the Countryman or Farm Weekly, the new tractor sales in Australia are at a 5-year low, and I think the reason for that is because, well, one, we've not had 5 really bumper years across the board in Australia. As you know, there's drought in Victoria, South Australia, floods in Queensland, and a lot of hit and miss years out here in Western Australia. A lot of people just do not have the funds, and combined with all this jazz with John Deere and the right to repair debacle in the US, and the tractors, a good front wheel assist tractor that's around 400 horsepower, you'd be looking around 700 grand for one of those brand new, give or take. And that's what you'd be looking at for a brand new one. And, well, if the costs of growing a crop keep going up, and the cost of the machinery just keeps going up. A lot of people are going to try and balance the books as much as they can, and if that means they have to resort to using older machinery, or farms like ours have to resort to selling the big tractor that would otherwise be used to pull the big equipment simply to get the costs without having a really big overdraft and potentially running into debt, if that means we have to run solely on one big tractor to do all the field work, then so be it. I'm not trying to spread all these sunshine and daisies and everything's hunky-dory, because it's not. It's really not in farming right now. Things are real tough, and let's face fact, until such a time as the agriculture manufacturers can bring down the price of farm machinery, and things like fertiliser companies bring down the price of the input costs, then the tractor sales, for example, in Australia, they're just going to keep going down. Of course, you may say this, well, Noah, the sheep prices, they're recovering in WA, aren't they? Well, yes, they are. But you still got to remember that things like live export, and that we're still recovering from those 2 to 3 years of all-time low sheep price. Farms have to make some income, barely, even just to put food on the table for our own families. And unfortunately, if that means letting go of big pieces of equipment that otherwise we would not sell at all, that's just what we have to do. Yeah, it's a bit rocky there. It's still going. So, look, right now, we're not gonna have much funds in the budget to get a decent 200 horsepower front wheel assist. That's facing facts, because a decent front wheel assist, you'd be looking at the same price that we sold Big Blue for, and we do not have that kind of money, because if we did have that kind of money, we wouldn't have sold that big tractor in the first place. That's facing facts. So if any ag manufacturers are watching this, this is my message. Bring down the cost of your machinery, and more farmers may be interested in buying it. It's not that we don't want to buy new tractors, it's just that a lot of us are doing it really tough right now, and we got to cut costs somewhere. And if that means we can't buy brand new machinery every 2-3 years, then so be it. The reason why this year we're only using the 7810 to do pretty much all of the field work, and in a couple of years time, we're looking at least 2 years from now, we might have enough in the budget for another tractor. But we can't have another tractor on here until we build a shed. If you thought machinery were expensive, well, to get a quote for a decent machinery shed, like the one that Dad was looking at when we first bought this place, in 2022, the cost to get a decent shed that would be enough to hold the machinery, the hay, the granular fertiliser, like a super shed, 70 grand. That's what we were looking at. In 2025, only 3 years later, that price has tripled. It's what some people call it the BC effect, before COVID. Or in this instance, I would say BA, before Albo, but oh well, that's just the way things go, isn't it? That said, I'm not in the know with all of the financial calculations, but this is just how a young person like me coming into the farming industry is looking at it. This is how the younger generation is looking through this lens. Some people are more smart about it than me. Some people can happily type away in the comment section if they're more of an expert in that sort of department. But that's just how I look at it. drone footage. I set the drone up and we watched the tractor and the spreader go up and down with the multispreader. I do believe there's some sheep in here as well that have been chased around with the GoPro and the drone and the tractor. But yeah, I think we'll finish this section of the video with a comparison of the drone shot and filming the tractor like this with the GoPro. Look at him go. Good morning. You join us on Sunday the 29th of June and we still haven't started seeding. We're very close. We top dressed fertiliser out yesterday, as you've seen in the previous video or previous clip of this video, whichever. And this morning we've been trying to put our massive, most expensive piece of equipment on the farm, the 28 metre, 5,000 litre tank Goldacres sprayer. We've been trying to put that back to work today, but it's been causing some, well, teething issues. For some additional context, we bought the sprayer back when I started vlogging on YouTube. It was the first voiced video that I did in real life, and that was when this was brand new. We had just bought this, they delivered it, and it was being tested. Well, 5 years later, and 3 out of those 5 years, this thing has not been used. So we've been trying to put it back to work today, and for the most part, most of the sections on this are working, except for one right at the very end of the right hand boom, and the section control, like the monitor boxes in the tractor cab, are also playing up. And the reason why we're trying to get this running now is because, well, we've ploughed 2 of the paddocks, we've top dressed all 3 paddocks that we're putting seed in the ground for this year, but we also need to spray pre-emerge. That's your Roundup, so you need to have weed killer go along, kill all the weeds before we put seed in the ground to stop the seed getting choked up. That's where we came unstuck when we tried the crop back in 2023. We didn't put weed killer out, so the crop didn't grow. I put some of this footage on my phone when we were testing it. I'm not sure if I'll put it in the video or not, but basically along the boom here you have all these nozzles along the whole 28 metre width, and it's this up here. This one section has a busted fitting. Fittings on sprayers, they bust all the time in Australia, especially if you hit the only tree in the entire paddock, or if the boom tilts over sort of like an aeroplane, or like that aeroplane movement you'd make as a kid. Sorry for the wind noise, but basically this one little section at the end here does not spray. Could we still spray anyway? Well, yes we can, because this is bifold, so it can fold in from 28 metres into 12 metres, so it'd be the same width as the John Deere air seeder bar. This allows us to basically get between the trees. Not all of them, of course. We'd need a boomless nozzle for a little sprayer like Hardy, which is sitting in the background in retirement. But yeah, we've been trying to sort this out today, and it's been temperamental. Could we get parts for this? Yes we can. There is a dealership about an hour away from us in Gamalling can go to. It's on the way to Darren from here, but it's the weekend. This is on the Sunday, so none of the dealerships are going to be open, which is quite inconvenient, as we were hoping to try and get some seed in the ground today. I'm not sure if we can or not, but at the same time we do have some other jobs. So if Dad can't get the Raven SCS 4400 screen that we got in the tractor there, if we can't get that going, then we'll just have to go to plan B, which is the tractor off the sprayer and put it on the combine, test the combine to make sure that all the hydraulics work between the tractor, the tank and the combine, and, well, widen some gates I suppose and shift some sheep. Whoa, yep, that's definitely spraying. Lucky it's only water. Dad's just trying to do a test to make the auto steer and the Raven screen communicate with each other. He's just doing a loop, turning around to come back. If we can't get it going today, well, we're just gonna have to talk to the Goldacres bloke tomorrow and hope for the best. I think he's gonna, yep, see, he's putting the bifold out, I think. We'll just see. So something's clearly not working now. From his expletives, Dad is not having a very good time because the sprayer is not cooperating. There we are. Okay, it's unfolding. See, that's what we call the bifold. So it's not unfolded all the way, and that's at the 12-metre width. So that's 40 foot. And that's the width we would be using if we were putting the air seeder to use this year, but we're not. Time for a boom check. Check to see if all these nozzles are working. Okay. For spurt. Squirt. Come on. There we are. Okay. That's good, that's good, that's good. That's good. These are all running. That's good, that's good, that's good, that's good. That one may need attending to. That's good. That's good. That's good, that's good, that's good. Yep, they're all working. So the plan currently, we can run the sprayer in bifold mode. That'll be good because we can then spray pre-emerge in these two paddocks. However, because the sprayer police say that we cannot leave chemical in the tank, we may have to go right out the west end and spray it as a bifold to empty it out. So either that or putting it back in the shuttle, and it's confusing. I said, what can you really do when you only have one tractor big enough to pull the sprayer and the combine? This is the challenge that we're facing here. It's certainly testing the versatility of the Johnny, that's for sure. It's going down, that means it's filling. Not quite 800 litres. Huh? Not quite 800. That's alright. Right, so the plan from here is we've got the pre-merge filled up, around 770 litres of it, not quite 800. Dad's going to take the tractor and the sprayer out to those two paddocks where I've ploughed, and we'll set the bifold up and it'll go spraying. But we've worked out that every time we turn it off, it resets itself and we need to reset it up all over again. Which is going to make things, well, yeah. For safety reasons, and also because the paddock's bloody bumpy, we are going to stand right back from a safe distance to watch Dad do this, which means Windy Sue, you need to stay put with me. I'm not having you run around the sprayer because the sprayer's got chemicals that we do not want all over Windy Sue. I did have some footage that I recorded on my iPhone way back when. The first time we used this sprayer on our farm, that was to put Nutrisoil out on the pastures. That was about 2022, 23. We didn't use the Goldacres all that much in 2023, so we barely ever used the full 28 metre boom, but it got it done really quick. The bifold, it has the outer boom folded in so that it's 12 metres wide, so half the width. This is something that, well, if it could be put into Farming Simulator with a Goldacres, I doubt we'll get one this year, it's like a DLC. If we could get that done though, that would be pretty awesome. Technical difficulties. Okay, out come the booms. But the screen is getting worse. We should probably stand right back so none of the chemical gets onto us. Right, so there's something coming out of the nozzles. Whether it's going to work or not, we don't know. And off goes Dad. Yep, it's working now. Okay. So there he goes, off to spray the paddock. And Windy Sue and I are gonna watch from a safe distance because we cannot get chemical on us. Now, on to Rainfall. We have had an outbreak to the season, as I mentioned earlier, but since then it hasn't rained all that much. And well, the other day, Weather Zone was saying for our area 1 to 5, 1 to 5, 1 to 5, 1 to 5, 10 to 20, 20 to 40 on the 10th, and then I could have gotten 10 to 20 mil of rainfall on my birthday, but it looks like they've changed their minds once again to say less than 1 for today, Sunday, less than 1 tomorrow. Tuesday, 1st of July, 1 to 5 mil. Wednesday, heavy chance of 5 to 10. So we are really on a time crunch. Ideally, we would have liked to get crop in the ground before the rain comes, but well, the question is, can we get there? Provided that the spray continues to work and we can at the very least get these 2 paddocks sprayed and empty some out the west end, then potentially yes, we should be able to. But right now, not looking like, it's not looking all that great. Another fault with this paddock, as you're about to see, is that even with the 12 metre working width, I don't think Dad's going to be able to get between all of the trees. Is that boom about to hit? No. No, it avoids just. But still, that's the problem we're facing. Not all of the equipment can really fit between the trees. I mean, it can because it's got bifold, which is one advantage this sprayer has over than companies, Hardy. But yeah, it's just a couple quick laps. Should get these 2 paddocks done within the hour, hopefully. Look at that. An American-built tractor pulling an Australian-built sprayer. In the ideal world, I'd love to see tractors be built properly in Australia on a mass production level, but what can you really do? The Rams are over there observing what Dad has done to their lovely paddock. That this time last week, those Rams were in there and they were refusing to come out. and now they're in that paddock. By the way, we're not putting that paddock in after all. We're going to keep the rams in there for the time being and put northwest paddock in instead. This brings me to another task that we'll need to get onto today: shifting sheep. And there's a very good reason for that. Herbicide, particularly Roundup, which is what we're putting out there, sheep cannot come into contact with it because it's a chemical. It kills weeds, and well, it's a biohazard and all this other jazz that really goes over the top of my head. I'm not really the person that should be explaining all this, but basically, if we put pre-emerge in a paddock where sheep are in, that is not good. Not good for the pasture that the sheep are grazing, and not good for the sheep either, because, well, herbicide is a poison, and if sheep eat fresh grass which just happens to have pre-emerge sprayed on it, it could very likely poison them, and we don't want that. It's for this reason that, well, we need to shift the sheep out of northwest paddock, and if that means we shunt them into Clark Road paddock or put them back in the racetrack north and give Clark Road a rest, well, we'll soon find out. We just need to make sure that we get all this spraying done first. Hopefully we'll have enough chemical to do those two paddocks, and maybe we can empty it all out in there. We'll see. But now, well, you probably noticed by now that the tractor was bouncing around out of control all over the place in that paddock, and even in that other footage when we were doing the ploughing. What do I think of our John Shearer Plough and the job it did compared to other forms of tillage that we used in the past? Those who are new around here and probably don't know this, we used to have a farm up in Canna called Nelly Creek, and we sold that farm and we bought Rainfall in its place. Well, I made about 26 videos when I was really getting off the ground on YouTube back in 2021, and a lot of those videos were in fact in the cab of the John Deere 8760 tractor, which is the profile picture of this channel, and a 40-foot Kelly chain. Now, I loved that Kelly chain, as it did the job of the plough, but at the same time, it was a way for us to bring a fallowed paddock back in for cropping, and it was a form of weed control. That's essentially what the job of the plough this year on our farm was. Now, the Kelly chain we had up in Canna was a 40-foot, and it was a 2012 model. We got it around the same time that we got Big Blue. This was to give the Big Johnny a purpose during seeding time, because the TJ took over air seeding duties. During the lockdowns in 2020, I learned to drive the Kelly chain for the first time. That was the first bit of field work that I ever did in farming in the real world, and I loved it. I loved driving that Kelly chain to bits, because I got to drive my favourite tractor as well. But of course we had to sell the Kelly chain, because here we were thinking that, oh yeah, sand plain soils, we wouldn't exactly need it. This was long before we realised that these paddocks have been heavily compacted from years and years of sheep and cattle over the top of them, and the soil hadn't been turned over in a while, and it needed to be ripped up of sorts. And well, that brings us back to the question, did the plough do a good job? Yes, but also no. And as we're seeing right now, Dad is still out spraying, but the job of the plough was to turn the soil over and churn the weeds up a bit, so that in theory the plough would help with weed control and the pre-emerge would finish the job with the sprayer. However, the plough left the paddock rough. This is something that the Kelly chain didn't do. The Kelly chain left the paddock fairly smooth, apart from the fact that the wheels on the outside left ruts in the soil, but then that's something that pretty much all pieces of tillage gear leave. So after we put granular fertiliser out last night, Dad and I got to talking, and we discussed the idea of, I said to him after we top dressed fertiliser in here yesterday, I said to Dad, I miss my Kelly chain. So we looked up Kelly tillage last night, and we worked out that they make smaller Kelly chains. That leaves us with the question, do we get a Kelly chain to replace the plough in future? We'll still keep the plough, of course, because we can't do a trade-in on that. No one wants a plough of that age, but the idea is we're looking at either a 2006 or a 3006 Kelly chain model, which is a 20 foot or a 30 foot. Those wouldn't need a big tractor to pull it. We, in theory, get away with the 7810 just fine. So, would that be an idea down the line to get a Kelly chain again? A smaller one. That way, if we put these two paddocks back into pasture again and it's time to rip them up for a hay crop in the future, we'll go along the Kelly chain and it'll smooth out the soil. It won't leave any ruts or bumps or anything like that, because the smaller ones actually have wheels in the middle and there's less chains to work with, meaning that less stuff to go wrong, less stuff to get stuck. And yeah, but the problem with that is those Kelly chains need between 120 to 200 horsepower. That 7810 is roughly between 150 and 175 horsepower. That's what we're working with. Depending on the chains and depending on the weights and the soil conditions and stuff, we may need a bigger tractor for tillage and pulling the combine. We'll still have the 7810, of course, because that's not going anywhere. But that leaves the question, could we get a Kelly chain for here in the not too distant future? It's just an idea to propose. If anyone from Kelly Tillage is watching, hey, give us a ring. I'll quite happily take a demo to get something like that in the future and compare it to the job that the plough's done. Because sure, Sovereign, it's all right for a fire breaks plough and it did a decent job around the fires and stuff, but it just left these two particular paddocks rough and rocks everywhere. If we could get a Kelly chain, might be a different story, you never know. Because of the rough nature with the plough, that's the reason why we're not going to be ploughing northwest, and also due to the fact that northwest has patches of white sand that probably aren't the best for growing crops, but we're still going to take the sprayer over there and put pre-emerge down. That's the idea. We're going to empty the rest of what's in that tank after we do these two, empty it out the west end and come back through the combine, not worry about ripping it up with the plough. It's the 29th of June today. I know I said in a previous video we do not want to be seeding in July, but unfortunately that's just the hand we've been dealt and we need to roll with the punches. I do not like seeding in July. I would have liked to be seeding in April or May, but hey, the crop's not going to be flash. I'm just letting you guys know now. We're not expecting any fantastic, unrealistic 14-ton yields in barley we planted in July. No, we're not expecting that. Realistically, we're going to be expecting 0.9 to 1 ton yields. It's like the barley crop that Jeremy and Caleb and Simon harvested in season 4 of Clarkson's Farm. I have watched that show, by the way. It's pretty good. If you haven't already, Amazon Prime is worth it. Just watch Clarkson's Farm. Good show. But anyway, that 0.9 to 1 ton per hectare yield for barley that they harvested in 2024 on season 4 of Clarkson's Farm, that's the kind of yield we're looking at. Hopefully it won't be riddled with weeds, because, well, we've got a sprayer and it's a bloody expensive one at that. We may as well put it to work. We're expecting between 0.9 and 1 ton per hectare yields. We're not planning to sell any seed at all this year. The plan is simply to bring the header down from canner, harvest some seed in that paddock. We'll do a couple of laps around the outside for oats and the rest in the middle on all of that hilly country there you've seen in the drone footage. That will go to barley. We're going to be harvesting all that for seed. We'll unload it from the header into the truck, take it back to the silos here and put those Moylan silos to use. Have seed stored in the silo away for next year. And next year we are going to be much more prepared than we are this year for seeding. And then we'll see, we might get 3 ton yields next year. You never know. Bearing in mind, of course, For those who have played with the Harvest Experience mod in Farming Simulator, or those outside of farming that have played Farm Sim, in Australia we do not have record high yields that the Europeans have of 10-ton crops and 14.9 tons a hectare in wheat or something. We do not get that. In some parts of Australia with the really good red clay soil in high rainfall areas, okay, you could get close to that. Maybe not in the 10-ton range, but in a very good year you could expect 5 to 6 ton wheat crops, and we'd call that a bumper yield. But for most of the sandplain country and in the gravelly soils, in what we call hit and miss areas, where we rely on the cyclones to bring rain in the summer, and that will dictate where the rain's going to fall in the winter, where that rainfall goes. If that goes over that area one year but completely misses out on it in the next, that's what we call a hit and miss zone. That's where Nelly Creek was, right up in that rainfall area. Now with Rainfall, we're supposed to be in the high rainfall area, but the past 3 years it's been lower than usual. This is to be expected as we go through droughts and flooding rains all the time. It's nothing to do with changing climate, because that's how the rain has always been in Australia. You get several years of droughts, several years of good rainfall years or mediocre years, and then you get one really wet year where you end up having towns like Mora underwater in June, as that's what's happened in 1999. However, it's been over 20 years since that happened, and they haven't had a flood since, so that's to be expected. Now, the fact is that we're at play in 2023 when we put that 65 hectares of oats in. First off the bat, we were seeding 2 weeks before now, in that time frame, in the last 2 weeks of June, and Big Blue of course broke the drawbar, which let the air seeder go, and we had to wait for parts. That left another 2 weeks. Then we had it finished right about now. But bear in mind, back in 2023, this place looked like what South Australia and Victoria currently look like rainfall wise, where it's very patchy, the feed's only just starting to come out of the ground, and then it gets something growth because of the cold temperatures and not a lot of sunlight. Like it had sunlight, but just not enough rain to really get it up and going. That's what our property was looking like at the end of June in July back in 2023. Factor number 2 at play with that was, by the time that we did get the crop in the ground, Dad refused to put pre-emerge down because he was worried that it would kill all the Saradella, and if we had a drought, which we ended up having anyway, then all of that perennials and stuff that was in the soil in that paddock at the time that we had there already, all of that would have been killed off. That's what his fear was. And then if the oats failed, then we'd have nothing left. We'd end up with a sand pit. And factor number 3, well, it simply did not rain. So factor number 1, planted too late, didn't help that we had a breakdown majorly. Factor number 2, didn't have pre-emerge. And factor number 3, the rainfall. That's the flaws with the oat crop. It did grow, it did come out of the ground, but the weeds choked it out before it had a chance to really set its roots down and grow. On the bright side, however, with that, the nitrogen from the Nutrisoil and the Flexi-N mix that we had when we put that oat seed in the ground, it boosted the nitrogen levels, which meant that last year that paddock grew a lot better feed than the paddock next door to it, Racetrack East. That's when we realised, hang on, wait a second, we need to put Nutrisoil on the pastures again. But of course, if you've been following the channel since May last year, you would know that sheep prices didn't allow for it, and we were really tight on funds. We're only able to do what we're doing now because we had to sell machinery that we otherwise wouldn't sell. That sprayer that Dad's pulling in the tractor right now, that was also up for sale. And it still technically is, but we're putting it to use this year because, well, budgets are tight in farming right now. Not a lot of people will be willing to pay over 100 grand for a piece of machinery like our sprayer. That's the simple reality, as I mentioned earlier on in this video. So what are we doing different this year? For starters, we've got a combine. We've got a completely different system to what we were using with the air seeder and the big blue tractor. And we're putting pre-emerge down this time, meaning that we'll kill off all the weeds and hopefully we'll have the crop grow. And the third factor is the rainfall. Even though we haven't had as much rain as we would have liked, and back in May, our farm, just like Tara's farm over in Western Victoria, it didn't have enough rain and it looked like summer. In May, when we were supposed to have our break to the season, well, the break to the season came really, really late, meaning that 2025's crop calendar could have shifted by a couple of months to slightly later than usual. We've heard some people on the grapevine say that we could be in for a wet spring. However, whether we do or not, that's yet to be confirmed. We need to see what the rainfall in July is like. And currently the forecast says rain is on the way, meaning that we need to get the crop in the ground before that rain comes, because if the rain comes and we get a lot of it, that means we'll be doing better than we were in 2023, because we'll have a crop out of the ground. This brings me on another factor to consider: prices of sheep. Now, as I've mentioned earlier, we've sold 105 of the reject flock and they did pretty good in Mearshade, despite the fact, of course, that they were comparatively smaller compared to the other merinos that were at Mearshade at the time. We got around 16 grand off those sheep that we sent off so far, and we've still got 40 of them out in bulk paddock yet to be fattened up. They are putting on condition and we might be able to send them off within the next 2 weeks, you never know. Looks like Dad's finished spraying. I'm not sure how we're running for time for this video, but if you haven't already and you've made it to the end, please do hit that like button and subscribe. We are very close to 900 and potentially 1,000 subscribers. If we could break that 900 subscriber mark, that would be fantastic. But yeah, all right, well, if this video's run long enough, catch you next time. See you later.